presented by Dano's Seasoning. Yum yum, get you some.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Sun Belt Syndicate. We've got the matching ensemble tonight here, Seth.
Oh yeah, 2 in a row, baby.
Yeah,
that's a winning streak.
We're in it proudly again. Yeah, absolutely. Winning streak for sure. We'll take it at this point of the season. And before we get going too far, as always, thank you to collegefootballdogs.com as they continue to let us do this in order to bring it to you fine people watching and listening, some of you tuning in live here tonight across the social media platforms. And thank you also to W Energy, Fanplex Graphics, TSN Off-Road, as well as Dano's Seasoning. But, man, how are you doing tonight, Seth? I guess we'll get to that first before we jump into this action.
Man, this time change is rough, man. This is my least favorite thing of the entire world is time change. It's terrible.
Does it feel like, well, actually, I guess it is almost 9 o'clock now, but I think about 6 o'clock or 6:30, I said out loud, it feels like 9 o'clock already.
Yeah, it's terrible. But, nah, man, I'm doing good. A little under the weather. I think maybe sitting out in the air yesterday, maybe a little bit. But we had a good time, me and you.
Yeah.
Bash Bros back together yesterday watching a little football. So it was a good weekend, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my dad came down. Well, my parents came down from Pennsylvania, and so I got to take my dad, who's a former Marine himself, to Heroes Day, which was cool. Always a cool thing. I didn't actually plan it to be like for that reason or anything. Kind of worked out that way. But yeah, we got to sit next to Seth and Tanis and take in the game from
Mark. Seats, man. One of our good buddies let us have his tickets. We just need to see if he can't donate some more money so we can get a little bit closer to the middle of the field. But other than that, it was a good time. I'm not going to name any names, but
no,
Marv.
No. We'll keep the innocent unnamed there, But no, yeah, we'd really appreciate that, and he's always come through in the clutch. And sounds like baseball didn't go so great. That was the reason he was missing that game, but I guess he didn't give me details. Maybe he'll share that with us next go around. But yeah, we'll have to see what he has to say specifically about that in the future here. Ben saying, what's up to everybody? Tyler jumping on. Good evening. Let's talk about some Sun Belt Conference madness that's going on. Absolutely. TJ saying a lot of yellow would look much better in all blue. Hashtag Hail Southern. And Ben James says it's daylight savings time for you. Yeah, it really is. It's I don't think it's anybody's favorite. I think there's been like a national petition going around to end it, actually, because I think it was more important back in the day when the farming and
all
that stuff was more important. Yeah.
I'd sign it today. I'd sign it right now.
Yeah, I've digitally signed it at least once, maybe twice already, but I don't know why it's not gaining more traction. I don't know if I know of a single person I've ever spoken to who says like, "Oh, I love daylight savings time." What are you talking about? I don't think I've ever run across it. So we'll have to see. Ben James is ready for the Red Wolves to take on the Cajuns this Saturday. Yeah, we got some pretty big matchups, but this show specifically, we'll be talking more about what happened this past weekend. So we will jump into that. And yeah, we didn't include the one graphic since technically we already went over that on Wednesday's show. But we will jump on that one quickly here to begin with, which was the Cajuns taking on Texas State. They won that one 23-17 to move to a perfect 4-0 in conference. Texas State, the preseason early favorite, drops to just 2-2 over there on the west side. And we will take a look at the standings here at the end. Seth, since TJ spoke about this one with me a little bit, anything you saw out of this one or anything that surprised you? I mean, I guess it was kind of the game everyone kind of expected, a tight one-score game here.
Yeah, I think once McLeod went down, that changed the ball game just a little bit. It was a fun one to watch. I think last week we talked about what you're going to get with Louisiana no matter what it is, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, it's status quo. And came out running the ball, threw the ball when they had to, and overall just pretty sound defensively. It was I wouldn't say domination, but a solid effort out of Louisiana.
Yeah, definitely was there. And Texas State, again, was favored with the spread. And The over-under did not hit, which really that wasn't surprising to me. 60 points in this one was a lot. I guess they expected the defenses to let up a lot of points, but they held in check. Pretty good, all around outing, I guess, for both teams defensively. Really, when you think about the offenses on either side and what they could have done. But yeah, that was one that went in the Cajuns' favor. Okay, so then we had a game on Friday night, the only out-of-conference game this week, and really one of the few that's left on the schedule. Georgia State, it wasn't a heavy underdog coming in. Connecticut with a really good record at 5-3 coming into this game, now 6-3, obviously, after the victory. But they were only favored by 7.5 at home there, so a little bit of respect to a team that really didn't have a great record coming in on the other side at Georgia State. But you said you turned this one on, was this CBS Sports Network? I think this one was on, right?
I watched most of this game. I think the first play from scrimmage, I think UConn went about 80, got it down to the red zone, put it in. The last 2 weeks, I watched Georgia State against UConn and then Georgia State against App personally, and it seems like they play from behind most of the second half, and they're having to throw, and your defenses know what's coming at that point. So, good effort by Georgia State. I think they a couple of late scores to keep it close. I think it was a little bit outstretched more than that most of the game, but a solid UConn team. Jim Mora, there's a name drop for you. 6-3 UConn, independent football team. So Georgia State is what they are, man. Your record kind of tells it all, but it's crazy. Out of those 2 wins, one of them's a top 25, top 30 football program. So it's crazy to think about. But
really
UConn almost that entire game until late. Georgia State put up some points, but not really close the entire game.
Yeah, I mean, it fell a little closer later, but not like you never felt like Georgia State was maybe going to win it, but you thought maybe they had a shot to kind of make a run at the end. But like you said, kind of playing from behind, they can't afford. This team's not built to do that, right? Think about that for the Vanderbilt game specifically. They were ahead, and Vanderbilt was the one who had to come back and try and bring that game back to a realistic win for themselves, and they obviously couldn't do it. So if Georgia State jumps out to an early lead and they can hold on to it, that's obviously going to favor them in some games down the stretch here, but they cannot continue to fight from behind. They don't seem to have that. Well, I mean, they have the running game that seems to be decent, especially against App State. So, a team that can't stop the run as well. They should be able to move the ball on the ground. They just don't seem to have that high-powered throwing offense that is going to get you back in games when you really, really need it.
You got to run to set up the throw, and they couldn't really do either one. I remember they put up some yardage against App, but no, just kind of bless their hearts over the last few years. Georgia State's not brought much to the table at all. So, 0-4 in conference doesn't. It says a lot, to be honest with you.
Yeah, going forward, they may have some recruiting, with what Del McGree's maybe bringing in. But again, we talked about this in person a little bit. Seth was. You keep losing, that some of those guys may jump ship, that they have committed, because that is not as set in stone as some people like to hope or think it is. AJ Moore jumping in here. He actually jumped over from Instagram where he said Hail Southern and sorry that he's late. But he jumps in here saying Saturday for Georgia Southern had major deja vu. Yeah, we will get to that one. And Tyler Austin wants to know, what exactly was it that had all of us believing in Louisiana, but not enough to think that they could come out of the West? I had them as my dark horse, but can't really put my finger on why I didn't believe in them preseason. I think it's quite frankly how last season went, right? So before we jump on to the next one, we'll cover that topic. I think with Louisiana, they were a solid team last year, but they weren't anything over the average team, I would say. I mean, the other big thing was they couldn't stay healthy at the quarterback position. I think I don't know if they went 3 or 4 deep last year. Zion Chris, who just got the victory with Houston over the weekend, was there and seemed like he may have been the guy going forward. But then he transfers out. And now you've got Ben Woolridge, who couldn't stay on the field very well last year, and Chandler Fields, who was out there too. Woolridge I'm uber impressed with him. So I think that's the biggest difference maker, is that they've stayed healthy and consistent at the quarterback position, if I had to pick one spot. But I think they're just more well-rounded overall. I think they did improve from last season to this season kind of as a whole as well. But yeah, your most important position is staying on the field and playing more ball. I think that's the single biggest thing that I would say. All right. Looks like Ben James says he saw a rumor over the months that UConn is wanting to join the Big 12 in every sport. Yeah, and they can do it. To me, UConn's just not a football. To me, is not relevant enough for UConn for me to care where they end up as far as that is concerned. Obviously, for basketball, someone's going to get a major powerhouse program that me personally I consider a blue blood. Seth, do you think of UConn as like a blue blood when it comes to basketball?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was just going to ask. What conference are they in basketball? Is it something American? Is it?
I think they're still a Big East in basketball.
There is a Big East in basketball. You're right.
Yeah,
you're right. You're right.
Play
definitely in basketball. Football. It doesn't make sense. I guess Big East does not have football. Is that right?
That I believe if the Big East, I don't think they do, but I think when they did, they were in the FCS, because Georgetown has a football program, and I think for a time the Big East did exist as a football conference, but not as well. I'm sorry. The Big East definitely exists as a football conference. That was in Division 1A, but that was way back in the day when they had like Virginia Tech and all the team, like a bunch of teams that are now in the ACC. I think the ACC could make sense for UConn. I just don't know if the ACC has the hunger to have them for football. But I don't, you look across the board, how James Madison's been really good in like all sports pretty consistently.
Right.
That's UConn actually. They've got a really good soccer program for men's and women. They've got good lacrosse up there. So yeah, I mean, they'd be. I guess they'd be a good substitute if someone were to leave. I don't know if they're looking to add UConn and say that, oh yeah, we added this, powerhouse athletic program. I kind of are, but I don't know if enough people would be excited for that, with the travel aspect being included and everything. So yeah, I don't know. And for AJ, yeah, we will definitely get to the ULM coaching situation. We will wait till we hit that game. But first up, the game that Seth and I were at in person. First of all, I guess ODU, a little disappointed in your fan output for the away game travel. And I don't know how much of that is wondering how bad of a travel aspect it would be to get to Boone, or what Boone would be like. But, I don't know. Seth, you can talk on that a little more. I mean, the mainstay areas of Boone are pretty well and back to pretty much full speed or real close. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, absolutely. There's no reason not to travel after, excuse me, after watching what ODU did to Georgia Southern on national TV there, and I think there would be a little bit more fire underneath them. Regarding the game, as in fans showing up, is what I'm saying. I thought there would be a little bit more of a turnout, but as far as the game, Dom, we were both sitting there talking, and watching App play, you're almost thinking like, man, I there's an expectation of, not expectation, but you're hoping we win. You don't expect to win at this point of the year.
Yeah.
If we had to take a guess, earlier in the week, 2.5 points, Old Dominion favored, we'd all be jumping all over that. But good for App yesterday. Offense, Monty Marshall's really stepped in that role of running back the last few weeks and has really showed out. And the offense is rolling. Defense is still trying to catch up. Played well yesterday. It was a good team win. It was a good day at Kid Brewer.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Speaking of Amani Marshall, it's like we were saying, why did it seem to take so long to find out who your number one back was this year? Because we saw that they threw Castle out there. Obviously, Kanye Roberts was kind of the guy coming into the season. You had Haywood as part of that. it's just like, I don't know why. I mean, Marshall may have been banged up. That may have been part of the issue. Yeah. 23 carries, 120 yards, 0 touchdowns. But he did have a 29-yard long run and was a massive difference maker every time he touched the ball, especially once they were trying to run that clock out with that lead late in the game and kind of get to that victory there. Joey went for 212, 4 touchdowns to just 1 interception. Colton Joseph statistically looks okay. 332, 2 touchdowns, just 1 interception. However, lost 3 fumbles on the day.
Yeah,
so
it's not going to do it.
Now, I will say this. How many of those fumbles are really on him because he, made a bad play? I mean, at least 2 of those were clear, like, sacks. One that he definitely did not see coming that got him from behind where he fumbled it. The other one, I think he was about to try and shovel pass it forward and got hit right before he did because you and I both questioned whether he had that one out of his hands as a forward pass before it hit the ground and got picked up by the App State defense. So, again, defense for App wasn't amazingly better, but they forced just enough of this good, high-powered offense. What ODU has been, lighting it up here coming in these last 2 weeks here, and slowed them up just enough. Isaiah Page here, pictured here, went for 205 yards, 1 touchdown that day. He was incredible. Vines actually went really well. I expected maybe Aaron Young to do a little bit more. It's hard to say that when he says has 110 yards, but you feel like he may have been able to find Pater and was not able to do that in Boone yesterday. But
there's a lot of points that ODU left on the field. The
Yes.
first play of the game, they get down to the 10-yard line, have to settle for 3. There was multiple times where they had to settle, or they just didn't come up with any points at all because of turnovers. But wasn't the same ODU team that we saw on national television, but definitely turnovers killed them. Not be able to get in the end zone when they're in the red zone, just missed opportunities yesterday.
Yeah, no doubt about it. One thing I want to mention is a guy named Mike Wright, who's a big App fan, pointed out without Harrington's effort on that play you're talking about, where they
Right.
almost had a touchdown on that first play, where, like we said, they end up fumbling that and not getting any points out of it. Ooh, if he doesn't hustle and get there, if he gives up, if he says, hey, we're not really, we're probably not going to a championship game, we're not great right now, and he just doesn't hustle like he did in that play. I mean, like you said, that's a different game right there, right? First play of the game, that's a entirely different outcome, honestly, if that goes for a score. So great shout out there to Brendan Harrington from Mike Wright. Definitely deserved that for the effort he put forth in that game. Because we didn't actually say it, App State wins that one 28-20. ODU was favored by 2.5 coming in. That was on Wednesday. Again, that line probably moved right before that game started. But the total over under 60.5 certainly did not hit in that one, as the defenses, like we said, did just enough. Okay, the one that we're going to have a lot of extracurricular stuff to talk about. So we'll talk specifically about the game first. This one really, it's hard for me. I guess it's hard for me to say it like lived up to expectations because I don't know how many people expected it to be like a barn burner shootout.
Right.
I guess Vegas didn't when they're favoring Marshall by 10.5 points, which obviously didn't happen as they only won this game 28-23. So a 5-point difference there. The over-under did hit at 47.5. So, congrats to anybody who took that, as these offenses took care of putting enough points on the board. Very close, tightly contested game at the half, 14-14. And obviously it didn't change much down the stretch as ULM took the lead after the half. Marshall scores 2 touchdowns, though, to take the 28-17 lead before ULM gets a late touchdown to try and get the score, and then did the 2-point, which they did not get, and then failed to get the ball back after that as well. But let's be honest. We're not really talking about the score on this one, right, Seth?
Right.
You were the one to find it for me first as I was driving back, sent it out. What did you see in that? What are your thoughts on that? You played the game. You had coaches that were probably similar in some regards. What are you responding like as a player on the sideline when you get attacked like that? And is that something you've ever seen anything like before?
First of all, I've never seen anything like that before at all to begin with. Second of all, I'd like to hear what TJ's response, what his will be when you ask him about this. But as far as myself, just high school football, but any sport in general, man, I mean, you're an idiot. I mean, you look like a complete just idiot for embarrassing yourself, your team, uh, your family. I mean, there's a thing called passion, and then there's just stupid. And to act like that, I mean, as a player, it'd be hard not to swing at somebody. Just to be honest with you, somebody in your face like that. You bust your ass for that football team, and somebody turns around. I mean, it's just completely uncalled for. I mean, I'll be the first one to advocate, hard coaching, but that right there yesterday was completely uncalled for, and uh, possibly even your job on the line for something like that. Because when it spreads throughout the university, it spreads to national media and Twitter, and it blows up like wildfire. So repercussions coming for sure, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. And I did sell Seth because I didn't realize I tried to follow as many kind of personnel on the team, whether it's athletic directors, direct departments, position coaches, even video staff, all kinds of stuff. I'm trying to find everybody I can to stay up to speed with anything that comes out news-wise, obviously. And so I found him. And when I did, it was because he had tweeted out an apology where he turned the comments off, which Seth and I agree is a smart move because you're not going to like what you read there. Because we've seen some of the stuff just right here, as everyone says. And Neil saying that's pretty immature behavior. Tyler Austin's, saying it's an embarrassment for the Sun Belt because we're making the news for that. This is a game, an entire game that should be talked about. What it meant to both sides of the Sun Belt as far as different divisions are concerned. What it meant for a close game that was, contested up to the very end. This is what we should be worried about and talking about tonight. And instead, we're talking about a coach losing his mind and acting like a child on the sidelines there. Now, Seth knows my history. I've had some stuff I'm not proud of that I did when I was younger and immature. Unfortunately, we're not talking about a kid or a student at this point. We're talking about a coach who's gone through more in his life. And one little aspect that was interesting about this is he's going on the field like that, yelling at this player, losing his mind. This was, they could have snapped the ball at any moment. And the Sunbelt refs didn't even throw a flag, which also maybe could have prevented some of this interaction, right? He's 10 yards out on the field. I mean, I don't know how that goes untouched, but we've had our questions about some of the officiating already. I would say, like you said, like I don't know how you don't at least push him and shove him out of your face when he's doing that. And luckily, his one teammate came in, number 10, I believe it was, came over and kind of did grab the coach and kind of pushed, walked him back a little bit. But I don't know. I just, I'd love to hear further explanation. Yeah.
And now it's national news and it's just a dark cloud over the university at that point.
Yeah, definitely is. It's definitely not a good look.
Today's world is hazing's a popular thing. I mean, hazing and just today's world. I don't see. I'll be honest with you. I see it. The way this could spread, it'd be hard for him to keep a job maybe after this.
Yeah, I mean, he's a first-year offensive coordinator. So it's not like he's a 10-year guy. He's like, yeah, he'll be fine. You're right. I mean, he could be kind of one and done here. AJ's asking, who did ULM lose to in conference other than Marshall? Obviously, they got hammered by South Alabama just the week before. So what was the final score on that? Was like 47-19 or something like that, if I remember right. Something similar. Tyler's interested to see if the player comes and says anything. My guess is that even if he wants to, the school's going to do everything in their power for him not to say a word about the whole interaction. They did release a statement. The school themselves said, we are aware of the situation, and the matter will be handled internally. So I would assume.
So we all know what that means.
Yeah, maybe not a lot. We know that the matter of the helmet swing before season got started for App State was also handled internally, and that kind of. Here's the good news for everyone involved with this situation is there's going to be something that happens in a day or two that everyone else will pick up on and you will be forgotten about in short order.
Hey, luckily for him, there's an election Tuesday. Nobody will care anymore.
That's perfect, Seth. That is exactly something that no one will be worried about what happened over the weekend by Tuesday. You are exactly correct. Yeah, there will be bigger things, and they'll just move on and talk about other aspects of life. Tyler saying the Sun Belt officials are a totally different issue and topic for this year. Yeah, I went to Sunbelt Media Days. I've said that many times, but there's an interesting aspect of that because the head of officiating is down there every year, and he does seemingly want to take questions. And there was really very few questions asked of him this year, partly because they don't do him too many favors. He gets to do his presentation. They leave him like a minute or two for a question. It's hard to do, but I have a feeling if people are taking notes this season, there's gonna be a lot of questions for him going into next season. We'll have to see what happens there. Changes are made or something different is done. But I will say this, the biggest thing that they could do and should do is if you're going to make college football more like the NFL, which they've done, right? Transfer portal kind of equals free agency movement, not a whole lot of punishment for the movement. Here's the other thing you got to bring into this. Those NFL referees now are full-time NFL employees. There is no off season. They do this job year round. They're taking classes. They're taking courses. They're watching video. They're going through classes. You got to do the same thing if you want that proficiency at the college level. Is it going to make it perfect? No, of course not. You still see mistakes in the NFL, but it will improve if these guys don't have to worry about their full-time 40-hour-a-week jobs. And then, maybe I review the rule book a little bit before Saturday's game. Maybe I don't have time. It's just the honest opinion of where it could be and maybe why it is the way it is. Artie's jumping in here saying hello, Dominic and Seth. What's up, Artie? Thanks for joining the show tonight. What was said in the post-game interview for the ULM Marshall game? To be honest, I didn't check out the post-game interview. I was so focused on that game and looking through the statistics and that interaction that Seth had sent me and that blew up all over social. I think it's like millions and millions of views at this point. But crazy. Yeah, Tyler, but they make $250,000 a year. Yeah, I don't know. Our officials make.
Yeah, he's right. Well, I think it's like 5,000 to 6,000 a game check, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
so, I mean, not bad for a Saturday's work, but
yeah, it's interesting too because you got to. I don't know how they handle at that level the travel expenses. I'm if it's anything like soccer,
I know like Division I basketball. Yeah. Shout out DC. You pay for you're paying for your travel and your hotel. So I mean, all you're making is a game check, whether it's right beside your house or if miles down the road, you're still making the same amount.
Yeah, that's how it was for soccer for sure too, and that was at the college or high school level. So yeah, if you can buddy up and ride with someone to a game that's 3 hours away, then yeah, you guys are both going to take home a little bit extra cash. And again, if you said you didn't do that and you're both driving separate and whatever, obviously those costs are more. So what's up to CJ? He's jumping in here on the show as well. That's going to wrap up that one, I think. Again, until maybe a little bit more comes out, or maybe, again, it gets completely swept under the rug, as Tyler was saying, and we don't hear much about it ever again. We'll see which one of the two that is. But look at this one, man. This is a rematch from a Sun Belt Conference Championship game just 2 seasons ago as Troy surprises the hell out of Coastal Carolina down in Troy, Alabama, wins this one 38-24. Did this one catch you off guard there, Seth?
Yeah, I did. I think the most surprising thing we talked about before we came on, what was the rushing stats for Troy one more time? Over 300 yards. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was 344 yards rushing as a team for the Trojans.
That's just pound the ground to gain ground, that kind of thing. You just put your nose down and you run.
Yeah.
I didn't see any of this one, but yeah, a little bit records wise, yeah, you would expect Coastal out on top in this one, but good for Troy. Maybe Coastal will take 2 L's in a row coming up this Thursday.
Yeah, it might even be more than that. Didn't they lose the game before this one too? I think. Let me jump over to their schedule real quick. I think this might be, yeah, they're on 3 straight losses already. It could be 4 straight
Wow.
L's by the time this weekend rolls around, depending on what they can do against App State this Thursday. And Tyler's pretty excited. He says, Troy U, we are back, baby. A nice homecoming dub, and absolutely was something that was greatly needed for really the team more than anything, but obviously the fan base will absolutely take it as well, because I think there's some bitterness in the conference for some of the coastal stuff that happened a couple years ago with talking and everything, and the fact they kind of exploded on the scene during the COVID year. So we'll see, if that continues to roll up. Already saying a good upset win there. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing was it had to be on the ground. It had to work on the ground because we know Matthew Caldwell is now going to be the starter going forward because of the injury to Goose Crowder, who's out for the rest of the season. He only throws for 169 yards, 2 touchdowns on just 9 of 16 passing. But again, there's a reason for that. I mean, even if he has improved and gotten a lot better at the passing game, you go for 344 on the ground. Damian Taylor, 190 and 1 touchdown. Gerald Green goes for 123 and a touchdown. So your 2 leading rushers are just completely dominating the game. Why do you need to throw the ball? So yeah, but
there's no use to even take a chance at throwing an interception. Just keep it on the ground and take what they give to you at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your leading receiver throughout most of the season, Devontae Ross, pictured here, he was the most targeted receiver for 4 times, only got 32 yards, but did still score a touchdown. So even though he didn't get his typical yardage, his typical output, he still found pay dirt. So still, your best players are still putting it in the end zone as well as going off on the ground. We did see Ethan Vasco go in this one for Coastal Carolina. He goes for 206, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, no fumbles to speak of on the day. So seemingly took care of the ball, second leading rusher on the team. But yeah, your leading rusher only had 69 yards. Ethan Vasco goes for 20. So not going to be good enough when the other teams put up 38 points on the other side. And again, that rushing attack was just.
I'd like to see the time of possession in that game as well.
Oh, I got it for you. Time of possession for Troy, 33-50. For Coastal Carolina was 26-10. So not crazy disparity.
Yeah.
Not too crazy.
Not too terrible.
It's just that the total yards was 513 to 313. So a 200-yard difference.
Right. Significantly more.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? Coastal didn't turn the ball over one time. Troy did. Troy 23 first downs to Coastal Carolina's 16.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, just a well-rounded all-around game that really Troy had yet to put together. Honestly, Troy's best game before this probably was against Iowa, even though they lost that one. I think performance-wise, I think their Iowa game might have been their best of the season coming into this one. This one now certainly replaces it. Yeah, not really back in it. 1-4 out of it in the West already. Coastal Carolina's getting pretty close to being completely out of it, dropping 3 straight in a row with a tough matchup on Thursday, although they do get it at home. So it'll be interesting to see there. AJ saying both Troy and Southern have a nice 2 weeks to prepare for that matchup. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that goes with a bye kind of coming in there and helping out both teams. Boom, boom, 4-1-8. Because go Trojans, so happy for this team. Everything that could go wrong went wrong for this team, but they never stopped fighting. Yeah, we were kind of talking about it. You can't give up on a team that lost so much and had a coaching change, and they haven't. And now look what it's gotten you. Not saying this is necessarily the turning point, but it makes sense that it could be, right, Seth?
Yeah, this could be what you need. Georgia State was just what App needed to maybe possibly turn the season around. 2 in a row there, but Troy catching Coastal when they're down, that might be a little boost that you need to go on a small little run to end the season with. Probably not going to be bowl eligible, but a good way to end the season for sure.
Right, no doubt about it. And yeah, anything's possible. We've seen Troy do this stuff in the past. Tyler saying in the post-game locker room, Coach Parker praised this team for continuing to fight when no one else believed they could. He echoed that this was their first complete game. Yeah, totally agree with that. I mean, and the closest they've been other than that was the loss at Iowa. I want to hark on that. I mean, that was a heartbreaking loss because a team that was so much thought to be so much better than them kind of coming in. And they were able to compete right with a team that was I mean, we've seen now what Iowa's been doing against some of the better competition in the Big Ten as well. So,
Right.
yeah, we'll have to see. Warren Bourne. Second half of Al State was where it also Arkansas State where it all started. Yeah, they did come alive there in that comeback that had fallen just short. So that's true. It may have started before this week because of how they were rolling coming out at the end of that one. All right. The nightcap, which had a lot of intriguing aspects to it in itself, had Georgia Southern taking this one at the very end against South Alabama 34-30, easily surpassing that over-under of 59.5. But USA was a 6.5-point favorite in the middle of last week before this one got going. And Georgia Southern looked more like the Georgia Southern we had maybe kind of expected to see against ODU in this one. Took them a little while to wake up, though, right?
Completely different than what we saw against ODU. And I'm just, while we're talking about that, I'm glad we're not the only ones who got embarrassed on national TV as well. So we'll just leave that one out there. But trying to pull up some stats here as well.
Yeah. Well, while you do that, I will tell you a little bit about how this game went as far as who was scoring first. I guess it was just a back and forth affair throughout first half, right? No one really pulling away. It's a 14-13 game. Georgia Southern up at the break by just that 1 point. And then the dam broke loose, and South Alabama scored a field goal followed by 2 straight touchdowns to take a 30-14 commanding lead going into the fourth quarter. They're at home. There's no way they drop this game at this point, right? But guess what? Georgia Southern, 3 unanswered touchdowns to win the game 34-30. Man, tell me some stats and I'll tell you a little bit more about what we saw on that one too.
Let's see here. Jalen, no, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm a little late to the party here. Jalen White's he's the all-purpose guy.
Yep.
18 for 71 rushing. Let's see here what South Alabama did.
South
Gio
Alabama
went off 257. Yeah. Bullock had 101. I mean, pretty balanced there. Let's see. Let's look at did you watch this, Dom?
Oh yeah, I watched like the whole second half of this one because I was still coming back before I got back from driving back from Boone 3 hours. I got to see that whole second half of this one.
Didn't realize maybe you just spoke about this as I was rallied for 20 in the fourth to come back.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
Yeah. So what happens here is what was interesting for those that didn't see this thing was, okay, I won't recap the South Alabama thing other than they were up 30-14. And again, you're starting the fourth quarter. All right, well, Georgia Southern scores a touchdown. Okay, still handily winning by 10 points, 30-20, because the 2-point conversion failed. So they didn't cut it down to any less than that. They were trying to cut it to that 1-score game. All right, no problem. You get the kick back and you go, and even if you don't score, you run out a bunch of clock. No, I think it was within 2 plays, maybe. I can't remember exactly, but there was a fumble that happened. So then it happened right in the red zone, essentially. So Georgia Southern scores a touchdown, gets the ball back within less than like a minute's time, and is about to score again. Whether it's a field goal or a touchdown at that point, you don't know, but they're about to score because they're right there already. Ends up being a touchdown for Jalen White, as you were just talking about him and his game he had. And then they, J.C. French gets hurt. It was, again, a little unclear about what exactly happened. People on the broadcast were speculating he got a piece of turf possibly in the eye. Some people were speculating that, at the bottom of the pile, he got poked in the eye intentionally. That's, you're never going to prove that because there's no video evidence that you're going to ever see that shows that aspect happening. But Dexter Williams comes in once again and leads this team to victory, just like he did against Marshall in that epic comeback. This one was just about as epic, just happened a little bit different as far as, how it all played out exactly, but he was still at the helm to help it go. I don't know what to say. It's like you look at Georgia Southern and you say you're down big to Marshall, probably should have lost that game. You're down big to South Alabama, probably should have lost that game. But guess what? They won both games. They're now
Right.
4-1 in conference, at the top of this conference in the East right now. It's just incredible. And AJ saying he did believe French got turf and Zion. Dexter was certainly in for the rest of the game. Yeah, 2 touchdowns in 50 seconds, so certainly less than a minute. I knew it was really, really fast. I assumed it was less than a minute. I didn't know if it was like 30 seconds or what, but he says in 50 seconds. Chris Connor is saying, like Irk said, one more time for the greatest team in America. Forced fumble by the Georgia State. Yeah, they're going to love that. Georgia Southern defense. Then Dexter Williams stepping up again like he did against Marshall. Grit and grind. Yeah, it absolutely was that type of game, and they had to use every bit of that to get back into that one. And I saw South Alabama doing all kinds of stuff with their fan base, attacking them for leaving early, not showing up in the first place. Seth, we're lucky enough to go to a team that is pretty packed no matter the circumstances. Can you imagine that game this past Saturday with very few people in the stands? I mean, the difference that would make to the players on the field, right? Like, well, no one's here. They don't care. There's no one. No, it's nothing exciting.
Yeah, I think the reason, going back to App just for a second, the reason we harp on this so much is because of the precedence that's been set for the last 20 years. You expect winning, you expect a crowd every Saturday. And when you show up to a game and you're not real sure if you're going to win, that does a lot for the culture. So a team like App, you expect to have full stands no matter what your record is. But a team like South Alabama, Georgia Southern's got the culture as well, but South Alabama, you got to build it for them to be there. And that comes along with winning.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a sad thing in that regard because they have such a nice stadium. It's not the biggest. So there is a little mark on it for that. But there's only one way to bring all that energy in there is to just keep people coming
Winning
back.
Does a lot, my man.
Yeah, winning does it. Winning does it ultimately by itself. Winning does it naturally. You've got to find some other aspects when you're not necessarily doing that to keep these people coming back. And it'd be interesting to see
Win and they will come.
True, very true. But AJ's harking on me saying I'm treating them just like the announcers for every game. Well, you have to be honest about it though. Like, how are you letting your team get down like this, and then you have to give them credit for the way they bounce back and fight back? I'm never going to say they don't get credit for that. That's not what I'm trying to say. But you do have to question what's happening early in these games, or it's not really even early. Like we said, it was a split difference essentially at the half. But it was that third quarter where they went down, and then they had to fight that fourth quarter to get back. But they are winning the games. That's ultimately, like you just said, Seth, that is the most important thing. So he's watching me literally and figuratively, which is certainly true. And then Chris is saying we have to mention that former Georgia Southern kicker Tyler Bass set a franchise record today. Yeah, I watched that part live, kicking a 61-yard field goal for the Buffalo Bills. Not only kicking a 61-yard field goal, kicking a 61-yard field goal after missing an extra point and bouncing an extra point off the upright. Still went in, but he hits the 61-yard walk-off field goal. Walk-off field. They won the game on it.
Still got to do it in the playoffs, boss.
Yeah, you do have to get it done there. I am a pseudo Buffalo Bills fan. I've got 3 App State guys.
I'm more of a Woo fan than Bass, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah?
He's a Georgia Southern guy, right?
The kicker for
the Falcons.
The Falcons. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Young Ho Koo.
Who or Woo?
Koo.
Who?
Yeah. Koo. Yeah, and Sam Martin may have been holding for him. So the App State Georgia Southern continues. So yeah, interesting aspect is Sam Martin is the punter still for the Buffalo Bills, and AJ Moore's got it right there. Koo. Yeah. Well, the first time I saw him kick this season, I think it just caught me off guard. I knew who he was. I knew where he's from. I knew he was on Atlanta's team and everything. But it just caught me off guard. I was probably watching Red Zone. I just see them about to kick, and I hear the crowd like booing, or I thought they were, because they're kicking instead of going for it, right? Because it was a 4th and short, and they kicked the field goal, and I realized, they're just cheering for the kicker. It's like, yeah, that's right. Okay, yep. Yeah, and Younghoe Koo is how to pronounce it. Okay, Younghoe Koo. Got it. I'll just go with Koo because that's way easier than the beginning part. But yeah, he's definitely going off to some of the best kickers and punters in the NFL have come from the Sun Belt Conference here lately, so that's pretty cool. Now we just need quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, all continue to make their way over to the next level. All right, this show's going a little faster because as we've gotten deeper into the season, we've got more teams on buys every week, and so we don't have as many games to cover. So we're already at the end of the show with the standings look. So we've got two teams with 4 victories in this conference. Georgia Southern sits atop the East at 4-1 and 6-3 overall. The Ragin' Cajuns of Louisiana are 4-0, the only undefeated team left in the Sun Belt Conference, 7-1 overall record. We've got 2 teams with 3 victories over there in the East Side. Marshall sitting at 3-1, ODU 3-2 after that loss to App State this week. JMU off the bye sitting at 2-2. App State still under 500 in conference play, 2-3, but 4-4 overall now after 2 straight victories there. Coastal Carolina drops to 1-3. Georgia State 0-4. Obviously dropped to 2-6 overall, but that game was not a conference game against UConn, so that's not going to hurt them there. On the west side, to round that up, Arkansas State sitting in second place at 3-1, a 5-3 overall record. South Alabama dropping that game to Georgia State looks a lot more important now because they could have jumped Arkansas State in the meantime, but they sit with a 3-2 record, 4-5 overall. ULM drops to 3-2, so they're tied with South Alabama at the moment, but obviously South Alabama owns the head-to-head in that one. Texas State 2-2, that loss earlier in this week to Louisiana. Troy now with a victory sits at 1-4, and Southern Miss rounds it out at 0-4 and just 1-7 overall. Man, Seth, thoughts? What things that you think may happen? I don't know. What do you want to say about these standings as we look at them today?
I think the East is a little bit more up for grabs than the West, even though Louisiana only has a 1-game lead. I think a 1-game lead is you're looking at Louisiana. I feel like that's pretty. That's you're running out the clock. I mean, if you're Louisiana, you're just coasting the rest of the way. 2 games, I feel like it's over. In the East, I feel like it's wide open. Georgia Southern's. We don't know which Georgia Southern team is going to show up. Marshall's a little bit of a surprise. ODU, JMU, and App. I think and App goes to Coastal this week. How many conference games we got left? 3, 4?
3, I think.
3.
Well, it depends on the teams, yeah, but yeah,
a little bit can change right here. I think we're seeing Louisiana in the West, and we'll see what happens in the East. I don't want to make a prediction yet. I don't know. TJ can make that prediction for me.
Cajuns apparently have 3 home games in a row. I'm not looking at the full picture right now. I'm just looking at this upcoming week. They do have Arkansas State at home in that one, as we saw Ben say earlier as well. Though that's going to be a big thing on their side, right? We know how important it is to play home games. We will see, and Chris Bolton saying, wild to see preseason favorites towards the bottom. Yeah, App State, the favorite in the East, Texas State, the favorite in the West, both sit 2 spots from the bottom.
I think that says a lot about the conference as well, though.
Yeah, it does. 8 total Sun Belt games.
Pretty solid all the way through.
At ULM. Yeah, absolutely. Chris wanted us to talk on the Coos story at Georgia Southern. He was a soccer player. Maybe I can call in on a dull week and we can discuss and laugh about it. We appreciate you very much as well, Chris, for tuning in. Yeah, the soccer players, man. I knew a soccer player. Mr. Irrelevant from years ago was from a little old town called Hickory, North Carolina, and I grew up playing soccer with him, travel soccer.
Don't tell me.
Ryan Suckup. Yep.
South Carolina.
Yep. Went to South Carolina. I saw him play once in college live when I figured out he was on South Carolina's team. That was pretty cool. He hit a really big field goal in that game specifically. I haven't talked to him in years, so I'm not like I know the guy. I just know of him and knew him as a kid growing up. We were the same age, but yeah, that's kind of a cool aspect. And just goes to show like the you can't make it as a soccer player, and not saying some of these guys couldn't have at some level, but you're probably going over to kick football because there's more money involved. It's a little bit easier of a job, right? A little easier on the body. Unless you're getting hit all the time, which means maybe your line's not holding like they should. Oh, man. Brendan Wright saying 2 of 3 remaining games for Southern are at home at Troy and App. And it goes back to Georgia Southern at UGA game when Georgia Southern took them to overtime. Yeah, I remember that game. That was a really good one there. And AJ saying a family friend of mine was coached by Irk Russell and won national championship with Irk. Proud to know such a legend. Yeah, that's always cool. When we were there this weekend, Seth and I saw NFL legend, an App State legend, and college football legend, Dexter Coakley.
No, sorry, Dom. Cowboys legend.
There you go. Cowboys legend, Dexter Coakley. As well with Monty Edwards getting inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. Head coach Jerry Moore was there. So anytime you get to get close and talk to and interact with people that have done it at a high level like that, it's pretty awesome. We didn't really get to talk to Dexter, but we almost rubbed shoulders with him with Marv's fancy seats there. But
good day. Good day
yeah,
sure.
I think one thing I'm going to do here in short order is to take a look at these records and put out how you could have your team get into the conference championship game. Honestly, I think App down is probably out because of who holds the tiebreakers over App so far. So even if they went undefeated from this point out, you'd have to have Marshall lose literally 4 games total, because if they lost 3, they would own the tiebreaker over App. So that's just one example there.
Right.
I think right now you look at Louisiana as a pretty clear favorite. Now, if they lose to Arkansas State, it becomes real interesting because they have the exact same record, and Arkansas State then suddenly has the head-to-head. So that West is pretty wide open because I think even those teams with 2 losses right there, ULM then gets a shot at Louisiana at the last game of the season. Texas State, I don't think you can really count Texas State completely out. But again, if Cajuns end up only having 2 losses, they have that tiebreaker over Texas State. So it's going to be a tough uphill battle. But yeah, again, call it the Fun Belt for a reason. It's like you can never really know what's going to happen any certain day. Finally, hopefully get a good midweek game here because yet again, last week's.
Who we got this week?
Well, that's the App Coastal game at 8 p.m. on ESPN. It's on the Mainframe network there.
Oh.
Yeah, we've got a pretty spread out slate on Saturday. We've got a noon game, 3:30, and then 5 o'clock. So we should be able, for all of us fans that try and tune into as many of these games as possible, should be able to tune in for the vast majority of most of them and watch, a good portion before having to jump to the other one that's kind of back and forth as we've typically done there now. AJ's wanting to know, looking now, who do we have winning the East and the West? That could be a fun thing to go with real quick, Seth. Do you have anybody specifically you think is coming out of the East or the West at this point?
I know who I'd like to see. Specifically in the East. If it's not going to be App, I'd like to see Marshall. I'd like to see Marshall pull it out. A little bit of an underdog role there.
Yeah, I would have.
Or ODU. ODU just after yesterday's showing doesn't give me much confidence in taking them.
Yeah, Warren thinks Troy can be a spoiler to place Georgia Southern and Louisiana. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Again, that's Fun Belt stuff right there. Troy has no shot to get into the game, but they can ruin it for others. That's still a fun part. That's still why these kids are going to be playing a game and playing hard for the victory. I don't know. I seen so much out of Georgia Southern that led me to believe that they could take this conference early on with how they were playing. Then they had these games where they look kind of bad in the third quarter, but then have this massive comeback and the ability to do that. They've got 2 quarterbacks I feel like they can trust and that I think look both really good. They've got a running back who was banged up early in the season who's maybe coming into form in Jalen White, as we talked about him earlier. The defense is the suspect part that just kind of comes and goes. So they're going to have to continue to score points and literally outscore their opponents to stay at the top. But they've got a great shot. I'd put money right now with the two teams that are there, honestly.
Yeah.
Not to be boring, but I think Georgia Southern and the Cajuns could be there, specifically the Cajuns. I don't know, Ben is a A-State fan and a Red Wolves fan, but I don't know if I feel comfortable saying A-State's going to go in and beat Louisiana this weekend down there in Cajun Field. I don't know if I see it. I'm not saying it's impossible. Just don't know. Yeah. Let's see. So we got some other comments. Are you saying Southern from East and UL Lafayette from the West? Yeah. So he's kind of boring like me, but I think it makes sense.
I think you're right. Artie's never wrong, though.
Yeah. App and Georgia Southern could be a class. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about
Well, spoiler.
App State possibly going for, having to win that game to make a bowl game, which we've seen already. Yeah. That was a really cool aspect a couple years ago when they both needed to win to make the bowl game. Not the way App fans wanted to go, but that was college football at its finest. If you had 5 college football fans and you told them, you took the jerseys off and just said, watch this game, I think all kinds of people would love it. And then if you told them why, the one team that wins is going to go to a bowl game, and the one that doesn't, their season's over. Right. And the way it ended, I mean, everything about it was just classic college football at its best. Warren's letting us know Jalen White went to high school just 25 miles from Troy, Alabama. That's very interesting how they didn't get a chance to keep him home, maybe. Dexter Williams traded a huge sack and managed to complete a pass, I believe. Yeah, he works magic for sure. I think J.C. French, I trust more as the passing quarterback, but Dexter Williams, certainly I am comfortable with him running the rock at the quarterback position because he's just as big and as fast and elusive as your running backs that you see out there. So no problem with him taking the rock and keeping control of that team down the stretch if it has to happen. Chris says, man, it's a toss-up every dang week in the Sun Belt Conference play. Not just football, but baseball. Sun Belt baseball is insanely great every year. Yeah, I mean, we got Marvin Seth helping out on the baseball podcast now. We're going to continue to do that for you guys going forward. A reminder also that Sun Belt basketball gets started across the board. All 14 teams are in action tomorrow. We've got the Sun Belt preview up on the YouTube page right now. If you want to go and listen to every single team and what we think is going to happen with Zach Capps. He's got his expertise he's going to be bringing to the show, and we're going to have a little duo this year. Maybe Seth will make an appearance on there sometime too.
Take the stairs for sure.
Yeah. Troy and App State fans, you both take the stairs. There'll be a fight at the top to see who gets to keep the stairs. But yeah, did you like the Lafayette alternate helmet? Anything better than that chili pepper? Oh man. I did like the helmet, the script, cursive, whatever you want to call it. I think it looked decent. Oh wait, no, that was Troy's helmet. I'm sorry, I'm mixing it up. Troy's helmet did look good with the script and the cursive, though. The Louisiana helmet, I believe, had the state outline, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Artie. It had the state outline with the logo kind of inside of it. I did like that. I did not like the South Alabama helmet. It was like too much going on. I think they had the Jaguar on there with like the flag in the Jaguar, which is already red, white, and blue. You got a flag that's red, white, and blue, like just too much. I like the South Alabama helmet that's got, I think it might actually have your favorite thing, Seth. It might have number on one side, but it's got like the battleship logo on the other side. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I do like that actually. No number though.
Yeah. Battleship logo, that's one of my favorites. Speaking of the Rock, I was there in 2007 when Georgia Southern went to Boone, went to the Rock and put a huge eagle crack in it. Oh, man, yep, I remember that tagline when they said that. Give me Georgia Southern App over UGA, UF any weekend. I agree with you there very much.
Not to get off topic.
Yeah.
Did you see the literal police brutality during the Georgia-Florida game yesterday?
Oh, yeah. Let's take this off because we're done with that. Standing
literal
there. That was
police brutality. Literal police brutality.
I will say this. So the one guy, The first one, I think, is like laying on the stairs and this guy's just punching him in the back of the head. I'm like, what is happening here? And then the other guy's like standing up, seemingly going after somebody else. And then he's trying to get around the cop. And it looks like he's like touching his belt and stuff.
Yeah.
So if he's going for the weapon, then hey, there's
I
no rule at
understand.
that point. But if he wasn't, then you're like, was this guy's just hammering away at this dude? I don't know what happened. Only thing I can guess is that they were so rowdy and out of control that these cops were just like, we're putting these guys down because there's too many of them.
When the video, I mean, and you can start recording a video at any point, but
True.
the guy was just standing there and got tased. I mean, I'm 100% police, but watching that video, I'm like, uneffing believable what's going on right here.
Yeah. Yeah, you do have to question like what caused that to start with. It's crazy how many of those videos have exploded around social media. I mean, this stuff's been happening for years, but now you're seeing it more prevalently across the board. It's like these pro stadiums. I don't want to sit up high at any of these pro stadiums because if you look, it's pretty rarely down at the lower level.
I don't want to go to a pro stadium to begin with.
Yeah.
Catch me on a Saturday. That's about it.
Yeah, that's true. I'm definitely there with you on that, man, because my fantasy team suck too. So it's not like making me want to sit there and pay big bucks to watch NFL teams play anymore. But there you go. Artie Cat is getting back into this one. There will be a lot of military themed helmets with USMC birthday and Veterans Day coming up this month. Yeah, and as always, one of my favorite things every single season is seeing that Army-Navy game and see what they both come up with for the pageantry aspect of it, but also like just the logos and awesome stuff that they always come up with. Yeah, it's just absolutely incredible. For AJ, he wants to know who we have winning each game this week. Check out our Wednesday preview for that. TJ and I are going to put that together and definitely get
you got to subscribe for that kind of info, boss.
Yeah, you pay extra fee, and we'll let you know ahead of time. But yeah, not only did DJ Lagway go down as well as other Florida players, but Florida fans were getting taken down too. Yeah, they definitely were.
Hey, props to Napier. I mean, he was written off. He was written off in June,
Yep.
And he's battled. I mean, he held Georgia all the way halfway till the fourth quarter yesterday. Good for him. I mean, you still might get canned, but you're going down fighting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of somewhat similar to what he did at Louisiana. I mean, he wasn't winning the conference immediately. He was challenging for it and putting himself in position. And obviously, the SEC is a whole different beast where you have a whole lot more depth, and it's a whole lot harder to recruit and bring in the guys you want and need to win. I don't know. Good luck to whoever does take that job over. If
he's watching, Boone's a good place to be.
Yeah, he's had some.
If Trey Lamb's not interested, of course,
he's had some experiences. He's probably not so fond of in that Boone thing though. Sunbelt Billy, as AJ Moore says. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think that's gonna wrap it up, man. We got through the ULM O-line coach stuff. We talked about the craziness of the fans and the stands. We talked about where this conference is headed. I don't know. I mean, I guess the last thing that I did put in the tag description for the show is at this point, do you think the East or the West is actually better in the Sun Belt right now as it is today? Do you have one?
Buddy. Louisiana all the way.
Yeah, but I mean like,
West, are you talking about, okay.
Just overall.
Overall, I think you got a clear favorite almost right now in the West. And like we talked about a few minutes ago, the East is still wide open. So I would take that favorite in the West over any team in the East, though, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. Well, already saying early Texas State Bowl prediction. If they get two more, the Preparation H Bowl. There's a couple teams that might need the Preparation H Bowl after this season is over. AJ is saying East is definitely most crazy. Yeah, I do feel like the East is the toughest to predict. So does that mean it's the deepest? It's hard. It's hard right now. Okay, so if you go from like top to bottom, you can kind of compare where teams are across the board here. I could put this back up to kind of help visualize that for those that are watching instead of listening. But you can kind of go across the board and say, okay, yeah, those teams could match up. Those two teams can match up. Then you get to the bottom, and I'm thinking Georgia State could take Troy and Southern Miss. Now, I'm not saying they win every time they would match up, but Georgia State has been really competitive, even though that record of 2-6 looks ugly and that 0-4 mark in conference is not good. There's not anybody in this conference who's going to waltz in and beat these guys by 20 or 30 points to me. I don't care if it's Louisiana. I don't care if it's Georgia Southern. I just don't see any team that would come in there and hammer them. So if you're talking about like the worst teams being able to compete, you've seen Coastal Carolina lose to Virginia, a pretty decent Virginia team for whatever reason, but they still put up almost 30 points, I think, against Virginia. So, I don't think you can waltz into either of these bottom two teams and say you're just going to hammer them. With Southern Miss, I think they are getting a little bit better, especially after the coaching change, what they look like against James Madison. But I don't know. Top to bottom, I'm still probably leaning toward the East for now. ULM, I don't know if I can trust too much. Texas State hasn't lived up to expectation. Troy was going to have a fall. We already knew that. Southern Miss is just, I don't know. At top to bottom, if my money's on taking one team versus the other, or one side versus the other, I guess I should say, I guess I'm taking the East, but it isn't by much or anything.
I understand.
Yeah,
taking Louisiana all the way.
Yeah, Chris, we will
We'll find out in the Sun Belt Championship game. Absolutely.
No doubt about it. And I guess that's where we'll leave it off for this one. So any final thoughts here from you, Seth, before we say goodbye to the fine people?
No, it's a good show. Just glad it's still football, man. I could do for football season all year long. Excited about basketball, but wish football would last a little longer.
Yeah. Definitely agree there, man. It's like we wait all year for it to come, and then it seems like it's going by so fast.
It goes by so fast, man.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, we'll deal with it because we'll still be enjoying it as it goes on. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you again on Wednesday night.